Welcome back, Beryl. Baruch Hashem. Thank you, Hashem, for giving me another opportunity to learn and share the wisdom of Rebbe Nachman and his prime disciple, of course, Reb Noson. Tonight we're going to be continuing our study of Likutey Halachos, halacha phase in Hilchos Yom Tov. We're going to finish this halacha, God willing, tonight, and then we'll be looking forward to getting ready for Rosh Hashanah. Baruch Hashem. So last time when we left off, we were discussing the idea of the difference between Shabbos and the weekday, and also the difference between Shabbos, the weekday, and Yom Tov. And we discovered that each one of these three different entities has unique quality to it, and the role of the idea, the concept of halacha on each one of these days, and what that accomplishes. So we discovered in the first section, excuse me, we discovered in this first session last week, when we were learning halacha, that when we do halacha during the week is comprised of the good and the bad, and everything in between. And the halacha that we do during the week is a process of identifying, searching for, identifying, and extricating the good from the bad. That's why it's called malacha, work on a spiritual level. That's what we're trying to do. And we discovered that on Shabbos, one should not engage in work because everything is already in a state of goodness. And the spiritual benefit that we would derive from our work during the week, we're not going to be deriving any benefit from that work on Shabbos. Quite the contrary. If, God forbid, somebody does malacha on Shabbos, it could actually energize the negative forces to become more powerful on Shabbos and play more of a role that we don't want them to play on Shabbos. We want a clear road to experiencing what Rebbe Nachman talks about as the Ahava Shebedas, the highest level of Ahava, of love that Hashem has for Klal Yisrael, and giving us access to that love. Yom Tov is kind of a hybrid, a little bit, of the two sides. On the one hand, it's a yom, just like a weekday, so there is what to be worked with and to be worked on. But on the other hand, it's also a tov. It's a yom tov. It's goodness. So it's got both the components of Shabbos with the tov, as well as the components of the yom, which is the weekday. And that's why only certain select malachos, only certain select forms of work are acceptable to be done on a Yom Tov. And welcome, Pamela and Teresa. Thank you for joining us again. We're just doing a quick synopsis of last time. And we were discovering these nuances and their benefits and what they do for us, what we're truly trying to accomplish by observing the laws of Shabbos, the laws of Yom Tov, as well as how to elevate even the mundane activity of our workday during the week. That's pretty nice, to go to work with a little bit of a loftier connection to why you're working. And then we said that there's all different kinds of eating as well. And we said that tzaddikim, righteous people, are not only there to sustain their bodily, their bodies through the eating process, but their eating is on a higher level that actually, that physical process connects them with the highest levels of Kedusha, because even though they're engaging, and this is what makes Yiddishkeit so unique and so special, and really a manifestation of the Ratzon Hashem, the desire of Hashem, is to take the Olam Hagashmi, the physical realm, the physical world, our physical bodies, and to be Mekadesh them, to sanctify them, to elevate them through what would otherwise look like a mundane activity, but when we do it with the right intentions and we do them in the right way, like, for example, saying a bracha on our food, eating only kosher food, etc. And we do all of these components, wow, we blow the roof through a rather mundane activity and open pathways straight to Shemayim. And if somebody were to start integrating this concept into how they eat and into how they're eating on a Shabbos or on a Yom Tov, there's a very strong likelihood that they would start feeling a greater love and connection for Hashem, because now you're actually receiving a pure, higher form of love from Hashem in return for your efforts. So let's continue. As explained, okay, I put a check mark here. I don't know if you can see it. It's in yellow. I should have used a darker color. But I unfortunately put the check mark in the end and at the middle of the sentence. Oh, actually, one more thing before I begin. I wanted to clarify something. I started this year last week, and I made a slight error. I quoted the pasuk and said, "B'yom tova heye b'tov." On a good day, it's good. It'll be good. It is good. B'yom ra heye. But on a bad day, a person needs to see, he needs to look into it to find that good and to identify it. And at first I said it was a pasuk, and then I said, no, it's not a pasuk. I got mixed up. And as soon as I said it, I tried to look for it and to straighten it out, and I couldn't find it right on the spot, and we didn't want to keep everybody waiting. But it is a pasuk, and the pasuk is in Koheles, pasuk Zion, Perek Zion, Perek 7, pasuk Yud Daled, pasuk 14. So 7:14 in Koheles is the correct quote for that pasuk. So I apologize for that misreference last week. I wanted to clear that up before we got started. Okay. And behold, the taste and the pleasure of the eating. Sure, there's a physical pleasure in the flavors and in the feeling of fullness one gets from eating, of course. But the time and the tanug of the eating, the flavor, the taste, and the enjoyment of the eating, shorsho, its root is me'ahava shebekdusha, from the love of kedusha. In other words, not the love for kedusha, but the love that exists in the highest realm of holiness. So when a person is enjoying something in olam hazeh, it could be that power to enjoy that thing is coming from a place of kedusha and can be connected back to it if used properly. Say the idea of ahava b'tanugin, there's love in pleasure. Very sometimes a challenging concept for someone to understand, in the sense of we oftentimes associate holiness with refraining from pleasure, not necessarily the integration of pleasure into our service of Hashem. And yet what we're saying here now is that's actually the highest level, is to take the mundane and the pleasure and to join it and make it part of and use it as the vehicle through which we can achieve higher levels of kedusha and experiences ahava b'tanugim, the love in the pleasures. Ahava, that in all tanugim, in all forms of pleasure, there is this concept of ahava, shehi, excuse me while I change the slide, shehi sharsham, which is their root. The root of the pleasure is a source of, it's interesting, I cut myself off, but it's interesting, source of many things in this world that unfortunately become co-opted by the world at large and misused by the world at large, actually have their foundation rooted in Kedusha, in the sense that Hashem wants us to use these things as vehicles to get closer to Him. But what happens is that the world misunderstands this, the world at large, who's not necessarily looking for a relationship with Hashem. The world at large misunderstands this and exploits just the the more base component of these things, so that they strip it of the kedusha element, of the holy element. When in reality, even these things, or even especially these things, are designed as vehicles, as I said, to elevate us and bring us closer to Hashem. And a tzaddik who eats in order to satisfy his soul with holiness, he binds himself to the root of that pleasure, which is a love that's bound in holiness, that ahava shebedusha, that ahava shebedas that we're talking about. And not only that, but also this. Also, he is elevated and binds himself to the root of this ahava. Again, like I explained, he's elevating himself by these activities. And that is the highest level, the ahava shebedas, that is beyond this world, that we can't comprehend. But he's still on a spiritual level. His soul can connect to that high level of das. And this is the concept of being satisfied with the holiest sparks that there are. And this is the whole idea of eating on Shabbos and pleasure on Shabbos. And on this it said, then you should be pleasure. You should derive pleasure al Hashem. Remember we said last time, we're saying it now actually, that through eating on Shabbos, we rejoice, we derive pleasure on top of Hashem, so to speak. Meaning that there are two components. There's only one Hashem, but there's two ways we can relate to Hashem. That's perhaps a better way to say it. One is within the framework of this world, from the 7 spheros down, called the Zeir Anpin, starting with Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes, all the way down to Malchus. And the other way to relate to Hashem is the Chesed in the Mochen, in the mentalities, in the mind. In other words, to have access to a deep, deep love that Hashem has, kiviyachol, so to speak, in his mind, that is way beyond this world, that's above these 7 lower spheres. So when we choose to identify and to connect with the higher level love, it actually, in a certain sense, from our perspective, puts us above Hashem in the lower level relationship that we have with Hashem. That's why it's saying Al Hashem, because at that point we've risen above the clouds, spiritually speaking, and now we're relating to Hashem on a higher level, leaving the lower level relationship that we had to Hashem below us. I hope that's clear. There's only one Hashem, but for our purposes, we're describing it as 2 different ways to relate to Hashem. And he's elevated and gets pleasure from the light of Ahava Shebedas, this high level love. And on Shabbos, it happens all by itself. It's available. All we have to do on Shabbos is not ruin it. Watch what you say, not because the Torah is trying to prohibit us from having a mundane conversation or an argument with somebody. No, we don't want to engage in those kinds of things because that actually will prevent us from connecting to what is available to us right then as a gift, practically. Shabbos is so far way beyond anything related to time. But on Yom Tov, that has this component of good day, but also a little bit of in a sense, a bad day, right? Therefore, we need to do actions. We need to do activities in order to bind ourselves even on a yontif, to this higher level of das, this higher love that comes from the realm of das, the bechinas oneg Shabbos, which is similar in concept to this pleasure that we get on Shabbos. And this is why a person needs to do work on Shabbos related to eating, in order to repair the food. In other words, that component is crucial to our elevating ourselves to this level, this higher level, which is the concept of eating the food that sustains our soul. And Reb Noson says, Ochel Nefesh Daika. It's referring specifically to Ochel Nefesh, food for the soul food, right? Why? Bechinas Tzadik Ochel Lisbo Nafsho, because a Tzadik eats to sustain, to satisfy his nefesh, not eating to sustain, only to sustain his body, and certainly not in excess to pleasure his body. Rather, he's eating with his body to gain that higher level of connection with Hashem. Again, like we said, and to have access and to get satisfied from those highest sparks of holiness. In order that the food should give us the pleasure we need on Shabbos, so that we can be zocha, we can merit to have access to the Ahava Shabbadas, the high level of love. Shabbos, pleasures of eating on Shabbos. We have special foods on Shabbos. And just like during the weekday, during the week, we need to do all kinds of malacha in order to achieve a level of kedusha. In order to identify and to extract the good from the bad, we need all the tools we can get our hands on during the week. All hands on deck. Similarly so, Yom Tov, even though there is this component of a revelation of goodness, right? It is a Yom Tov, but nonetheless, and it doesn't require such searching, such identifying, and therefore most malachos are prohibited. Most work is prohibited, but nevertheless, you still need to do work related to food, which would otherwise be prohibited on Shabbos, in order to repair the food component and be able to be makasher us, to bind us to this Ahava Shabbadas. Shubechinas oneg Shabbos, which is a concept of pleasure on Shabbos. In other words, we can achieve that oneg Shabbos, quote unquote, even on Yom Tov, when we do those malachos on Yom Tov that are permissible on Yom Tov, but would otherwise be prohibited on Shabbos. But on Yom Tov, when we do those malachos, we can achieve that Ahava Shabbadas right there on Yom Tov that is usually, in a certain sense, reserved for Shabbos. This is beyond time. In other words, it shoots us up in a rocket ship straight up to the highest levels of Kedusha when we do this. Above the Yamin. And we said before that the Yamin, days, literally days, but it means things that are defined by time and space, things that have a limit to them. And the Yamim are also the midos, the character traits of Hashem in this world, because we view them as having definition. And therefore, all the seven lower spheros, again, starting with Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, all the way down to Malchus. In other words, when I say that, I'm talking about all the different ways that Hashem interacts with you in your life. All the things that happen to you, all the things that you're cognizant of. Oh, Hashem gave me a good day today, Hashem gave me a bad day today, etc. These are all yamin. These midos, these character traits are all referred to as yamin because they are limited as far as the exposure that a person has with them. And these are the seven lower spheros. When we blast ourselves out of this realm into a realm that is beyond time, then what happens is we are now floating high above the physical reality, and we have a higher connection to Hashem. And therefore, even when it comes to things that you're permitted to do for the sake of food, it's not anything goes. It doesn't. You are not permitted to do everything, literally everything. Ki ketzira, utchina, uschita, etc. Because harvesting and grinding and squeezing, right? All of these kinds of activities, as well as many others, are prohibited, even though they are required for the preparation of food. So on Yom Tov, it's just not open hunting season on anything you need just because you want to eat something. There are still limitations because, again, our purpose of using certain malachos on Yom Tov is designed for a specific purpose. It's not just to prepare another meal. It has a specific definition. I always wondered before I learned this halacha, if it's okay for ochel nefesh, well, how come, like he says, how come certain things are permissible and certain other things are not? And I know we can carry, we can't harvest, we can't, like he says, we can't grind, we can't. There's a bunch of other activities we can't do as well. Most of the malachos we can't do. Yet certain food-related malachos we are permitted to do. Why? Because for sure, those other malachos are very, very much connected to this process of extricating the good from the bad. Very much so. In other words, not all malachos are as effective as some of these malachos are at extricating the good from the bad. In fact, most of them are very effective as far as this process of birurim, of identifying and clarifying and extricating the good from the bad, which is why we're not allowed to do those kinds of malachos. Kigon ketzira, like harvesting, utchina, grinding, asurim, afilu ba'ochel nefesh. Even though you need it for food, you're not allowed to do it on Yom Tov. Ki birurim, because these activities are very strongly related to the process of birurim, of, again, identifying the good and the bad and making a selection. To select the good from the bad. Zeh also b'Yom Tov, and this is prohibited on Yom Tov. And the only thing that's permissible is cooking, baking and cooking, and similar types of things, which are really designed, once you basically have the raw components in front of you, then we assemble them and we make them suitable for eating. But we're not going all the way back to the origins of the process of the food preparation. That's the point. Because at that point, everything's already finished. Everything's already been, the hard work as far as developing that food product has already been accomplished, and the good that can be found in that process during the weekday through those malachos has already been done. But rather, it's only that you need to cook it now to actually turn it into something that you would enjoy eating and something with a good taste. That would not be possible to be sensed before it was cooked. And the taste is from this tanug, from this pleasure, that comes again from this love of the ta'anugim, of the pleasures of Shabbos, because of how it connects us to Hashem. And that's why you're able to do this kind of work on Yom Tov. You can bake and you can cook to prepare your food, and to reveal the flavor reveal the good flavor, Excuse me 1 second. Thank you. In order to bind it and elevate it to its root, to its source. In other words, to the real reason why Hashem's giving you such a pleasurable experience. Use that pleasurable experience to get close to me, in a sense, is what Hashem is saying. Again, this is the way to give us access to this high level of Ahava. And this is why the pasuk calls it Ochel Nefesh, soul food. I hate to call it soul food, but that's what the translation could be translated as. But it means food for one's nefesh. As it says, the only thing that you're permitted to do on Yom Tov is that which is for food that can be eaten by every person. But it says l'chol nefesh. It uses the word nefesh, so that indicates that there's a higher process of activity that's going on here. It's not just prepare food for whatever goes. It's prepare food for your nefesh to elevate your soul on Yom Tov. Well, now we're talking about Yom Tov. And it doesn't just say that which should be that needs to be eaten and then stop. It says kol nefesh, as I mentioned. The pasuk focuses in on the nefesh part, the whole nefesh. Which is you're eating for your soul, which is how a tzaddik eats. He eats to satisfy his soul. Again, to tap into the highest sparks of Kedusha. This is the true oneg of Shabbos. So when you sit down to have your Shabbos meal, and it's so delicious, or your Yom Tov meal, and you're preparing it and then sitting down to eat it, and it's so delicious. The reason why it's delicious is because Hashem has given you a way to connect to Him on a higher level. When you're eating on Yom Tov of Shabbos, has that component to it. You elevate your soul and give yourself access to this higher level of Ahava, the Ahava Shabbadas. And this is permissible to do on Yom Tov in order to be able to make this kind of food for your soul. In order to elevate yourself and bind yourself to the pleasure of Shabbos. So on Yom Tov, when we prepare food and we eat, our goal, in a certain sense, is to elevate that experience to the level of eating on Shabbos, which is, of course, the highest level. And this is what our rabbis of blessed memory have said. On this pasuk, only that which is edible, which is food for all nefesh, for all soul, that alone you should do for yourselves. And the rabbis learned from that. Lachem, for you, you can't be doing the kind of food preparation that would be prohibited on Shabbos, but is permissible on Yom Tov. You cannot do that kind of food preparation for a dog, for an animal. And it's for you also. A Jew is not permitted on Yom Tov to specifically make food for a non-Jew. Yom Tov is reserved for us to observe in order for us to be able to connect to Hashem on that level. And we do that by preparing the food that we need to eat, but we're not allowed to prepare it for anybody else except ourselves or another Jew who is similarly commanded in this specific mitzvah. Because when an animal eats his food, or when someone, even a human being, which I'm obviously not an animal, and I'm not making the comparison from a human being to an animal, except from the perspective to say that unless a human being is actually sitting down and eating his meal with the expressed intent and understanding that this is bringing him closer to Hashem, this is the component that distinguishes the kind of eating that we're discussing now. Because dogs, animals, are ravenous. They're insatiable. And they don't know how to stop. And they're eating, and they don't know when they're satisfied. They don't even know when they're satisfied. It reminds me of the hot dog eating contest at the boardwalk. Nathan's and they're eating dozens and dozens and dozens of hot dogs in like 10 minutes or something. It's just a way of consumption for consumption's sake. They're not looking to use the food that they're ingesting as any sort of spiritual endeavor. And I venture to say that most people who eat in the world are also not looking for that food to elevate them on a spiritual level. They're not. They're enjoying their meal. Maybe they're even grateful to God for the meal, but are they actually tailoring their eating process with the intent and with the constrictions of, like we have with halacha, of utilizing it to draw us closer to Hashem? All of these other processes of eating, these other ways of eating, are opposite to that which the way that tzaddik eats. And when the world at large eats, for the most part, they're eating not with that spiritual goal in mind. Because at that moment, when a person is only eating so that they feel satiated in their body, devoid of a connection with allowing that process to bring it closer to Hashem, at that minute, he's just acting. Now, he's not acting badly, but he's acting like an animal would act. An animal is hungry, so it eats. And a human being has the capacity to eat because they're hungry, and they only want to alleviate the hunger. But when we eat on Shabbos and when we eat on Yom Tov, that's not our only goal. Our primary goal should be and is to bring us closer to Hashem. Because these people who are eating this way are engrossed in all sorts of taivos, of desires, and their eating is in tuma, meaning tuma means impurity. What it means in this context is that on the one hand, you have kedusha, which is closeness to Hashem. On the other hand, the polar opposite is tuma, which is distance from Hashem. If you would go up to the average person eating, from one of the food coaches on the streets of Manhattan and say, I have a question. Are you eating right now to bring you closer to God? He would probably choke on his food and laugh at you, because that's not what they're thinking of. So if that's not what they're thinking of, then the process they're engaging in is not one of kedusha, it's one of tumah. And therefore, the only thing that's permissible for a Jew to cook on Shabbos, on Yom Tov, is food for a Jew who is commanded to eat in this fashion. By the way, if for some reason, let's say somebody has a non-Jewish home health aide in their home on Shabbos, on Yom Tov, I keep saying Shabbos, on Yom Tov, etc., and they make food for the family, of course, the non-Jewish person can partake of the food because it was made for the family. But a Jew is not permitted, even on Yom Tov, when one is allowed to cook exclusively for a non-Jew. That's the point. Because the eating of a Jew, specifically when it comes to eating on Shabbos and Yom Tov, is holy. It's supposed to be a holy endeavor, as we have seen. Because Jews have many types of holinesses and mitzvos associated with their eating. For example, brachos. We say a bracha before we eat, and we say a bracha after we eat. Ki kol Yisrael hem b'chinas tzadikim, because all of Klal Yisrael, at their root, are tzadikim, are righteous. As it says in Pasuk, Ba'amech Yisrael, your nation Yisrael, kulam tzadikim. They're all righteous. Achilasam hu b'kedusha, and their eating is with holiness. In the context of the tzaddik eats to satisfy his soul. And therefore, it's for them alone was the permit to do these types of malachos on Yom Tov to prepare food. Yom Tov. In order to make the necessary repair, again, to identify the goodness even among the badness, even on Yom Tov, and to bind him to his source, to bind it to its source, meaning the food. This goes to and then the person has his zechus, has the merit to have access to this avash b'das. How do you know you have you hit a run and you have this avash b'das? Because you feel it, you feel connected, you feel immense love and appreciation. You're starting to think differently on your Shabbos or your Yom Tov. This is how you can know that you're on the right track. It's not, let's sit down and have a big meal and then let's read the newspaper. You're eating and you're taking something away from that eating that is drawing you with a desire to be closer to Hashem. Now, as an introduction to this part, I have to explain very quickly the concept of an Erev Tavshilin. An Erev Tavshilin, in case anybody doesn't know, is a mechanism by which we start our Shabbos preparation before Yom Tov so that we can continue our Shabbos preparation on Yom Tov. So, for example, let's say Yom Tov is Friday, and then it's Shabbos, Friday night. So I actually start preparing Shabbos on Thursday before it's Yom Tov, and I make an Erev Tavshilin to demonstrate that I am starting that Shabbos preparation. It usually includes two foods like a challah or a matzah, something baked and something cooked like an egg or a piece of fish. Right? And I put those aside and I designate that as my symbol that I've started the Shabbos preparation during the weekday before Yom Tov, and that permits me to continue on Yom Tov a Shabbos preparation. Why? Because especially, let's say, for example, before there was refrigeration, they wouldn't be able to prepare everything they needed for Shabbos. Additionally, if it's Yom Tov and then that night, the following night is Shabbos, you have to light your Shabbos candles. And that's a malacha that's permitted on Yom Tov, but you're doing it solely for the sake of Shabbos, because you're doing it before it's Shabbos, or you're doing it for Shabbos. So there's many things that we need to do on Yom Tov to prepare for Shabbos. The mechanism by which we're able to do that is by doing this process of the food and saying a special text that identifies it as the Erev Tavshilin, which will then permit us to continue our preparation. Reb Noson is going to give us a deep spiritual insight into this concept. Because on Yom Tov, biblically speaking, you are permitted to prepare for Shabbos. But the Erev Tavshilin is there to remind us so that we should not forget Shabbos. The Yivor Mani Yafal Shabbos, and we should select a beautiful piece, right, a beautiful thing for Shabbos. We all know that if you encounter something special, especially food, you should, and it's wonderful, you should put it aside for Shabbos. Similarly so, on Yom Tov, you're preparing, you're cooking, and you prepare and cook to prepare for Shabbos as well, when it's Shabbos back to back with Yom Tov back to back into Shabbos. So Reb Noson is saying we prepare Tavshilin to remind us that we have to remember to prepare for Shabbos. Why? Because it's permissible, it's fit, it's appropriate to prepare for for Shabbos and Yom Tov. Because all types of food preparation, not all types, as we described before, but those permissible types of food preparation are permissible on Yom Tov, in order that we should be able to elevate it to the stature of Oneg Shabbos, of enjoying the Shabbos. And therefore, for sure, I mean, if the goal is to reach the level of Shabbos and it's Yom Tov, I should be allowed to do something on Yom Tov that will prepare me to reach that higher level on Shabbos. Absolutely. Oneg Shabbos because it's Oneg Shabbos, which is permissible on Yom Tov to prepare for it. Like we said above, our rabbis have tiknu, they established Erev Tavshilin, the Erev Tavshilin, this concept of the in my scenario of the bread and the cooked food, in order that one should not forget the Shabbos. Why? Because since a person is preoccupied over the course of a Yom Tov in the baking and the cooking and the things they need to eat on the Yom Tov itself, it's possible that a person will forget about Shabbos. Since a person is preoccupied with his food necessities on Yom Tov, which is elevating him so wonderfully, right? He's into it. He's preparing food. He's eating it. He's enjoying it. He's totally 100% focused on Yom Tov. Yom Tov, Yom Tov. This is great. I'm reaching a high level, and I'm connected. But what? God forbid, he's forgetting that it's going to be Shabbos in a couple of hours. Okay, therefore, Yuchel Ishkoach has a Shabbos. It's possible that he could forget all about Shabbos. Ma'achash Zocha Gam. Ata. Let me just adjust the size. Since he's Ata b'Yom Tov la'oneg Shabbos. So in other words, since we said before that it's possible through the process of doing the Ochel Nefesh activities like cooking and baking, etc., that are permissible to be done on Yom Tov, and that has the power to elevate us to this higher level of Ahava Shabbadas, a person's already floating in the higher stratospheres of Kedusha. So he might say to himself, I'm happy where I am. Where do I need to go? I don't have anywhere to go. And yet, that's not entirely true. He's got Shabbos to prepare for. Therefore, Al Kain, Tiknu Erev Tavshilin, the Chachamim established the concept of the Erev Tavshilin, Kidei Sheyizkor v'Yikor Mana Yafa l'Shabbos, in order that he should keep in mind that he needs to prepare for Shabbos also. Set aside when you're baking and let's say you bake and you make 2 or 3 challahs on Yom Tov, whatever it is. Oh, look at this one. This one came out perfect. Set it aside for Shabbos. You prepare the meal for the afternoon, or you're preparing other things for Shabbos. Ooh, this is beautiful. This is delicious. Don't eat it now, even though it's Yom Tov, even though you can attain the highest level, as we said, right now on Yom Tov, put it aside for Shabbos. Prepare for Shabbos also. Why? Because in truth, nevertheless, Shabbos chashuv b'vaday yoser miyom tov. Why do you want to save that mana yafa, that nice piece, for Shabbos specifically? Why not eat it now and derive all the spiritual benefit? Yet you can. So Reb Noson says no, because don't forget, Shabbos is nonetheless at a much, much higher level than even the Yom Tov, and even the Yom Tov that a person creates for himself by doing the appropriate malachos to prepare the food and then eating the food in the appropriate way. All of these things are wonderful, and it's maximizing the potential of the Yom Tov, but it doesn't come close to what a person could do on Shabbos. Therefore, when you're preparing on Yom Tov, you have to make sure to remember to prepare as well for Shabbos. Because on Shabbos, why is Shabbos at a higher level? Because that's an entire resting altogether. Nothing is permitted because, not because, but that demonstrates that there's no selecting, there's no beer that needs to take place of choosing the bad, choosing the good from the bad. It's already been done for you. So now all the roadblocks to the highest levels of Kedusha have been removed for you. And by having the food ready to go and enjoying it and connecting to it and eating it properly with the brachos, with the blessings, and with the right intention, wow, what you can achieve on Shabbos is still greater than what you can achieve on a Yom Tov. Because on Shabbos, the Ahava Shabbadas is revealed all by itself. That's Hashem's gift to us in the Shabbos. And that concludes Halacha Beis, Baruch Hashem. I don't know if anybody has any points that they want to make. Maybe I'll just give you like 30 seconds if you want to tell me or ask me something or clarify something. But that ends our halacha. And I want to thank you very, very much for joining me. God willing, I'm off to Oman tomorrow with my son. And I want to bench everybody that they should have a healthy and a happy new year filled with Avodas Hashem B'Kedusha. Service to Hashem should permeate your reality and everything you do and everything you experience. There should be the good days and the bad days should all be part of your Avodas Hashem. And you should use every mitzvah that Hashem gives us to get closer to Him every day, especially on Shabbos and Yom Tov, Baruch Hashem. So thank you again for joining us. Nobody has any questions, and we can. I'll just wait one more minute, just in case. We ended a little bit early. Usually I go about an hour, but tonight we're ending a little bit early. It's fine. All right. Ashkar, thank you very, very much. And again, all the blessings for a Shana Tova, a good, healthy year. Thank you very much, Mama. Thank you. All the best. Teresa Yaya, a good Yom Tov, a good year.